The UFC's former interim lightweight champion and one of the pound for pound best fighters on the planet, Dustin Poirier. How are you, sir?
Doing good, man. Just getting back from the gym.
I understand. So that's the life of a fighter.
Yeah,
It's
you
good to
better
see you
believe it.
healthy. It's good to see you healthy, and kudos to you for defeating staph infection in the championship rounds. What in the world? What does that feel like? I mean, a lot of us will probably never get staph. A lot of us do the best we can to prevent it, but ultimately, chances are if you train, it's going to happen, or ringworm or MRSA or something along those lines. So, what did it feel like, and how did you notice the infection starting?
Yeah, man. I've been fighting for 15 years, so I've had staph a couple times throughout my career. I've never. This was the first time I've been hospitalized with it. I had it in my like a couple of times. It hasn't even had like an open wound. It started like a cellulitis and then got infected somehow. I'm not even sure. But this particular time, it was in my foot. I got home from my fight in November with Chandler, took a week off, hung out with family, and then got back to the gym, and it happened the first week I was back home in the gym in Louisiana. Trained for a full week, went to sleep on Friday night, woke up Saturday in pain, in serious pain, couldn't really walk, didn't have any open wound on my foot, so not really sure what was going on. Got some oral antibiotics called in. And also, this is the first time I've had to get it like lanced and drained and packed and stuff like that. So usually I just go to the doctor and I get oral antibiotics like a Bactrim or something strong. And within hours, I can feel some relief because staph infection is very painful, very, very painful. So I woke up that Saturday, got the doctor to give me some antibiotics, started taking them. Nothing was going on. Like I was still in pain. I had a fever. So I knew it was getting kind of serious. And then I woke up Sunday morning, like in more pain. And me and my wife were talking, like, we got to go to the hospital. We did 24 hours on antibiotics and nothing has changed at all. I had a fever of like 100 degrees for like 4 days straight. But I went to the hospital. I was there for like maybe 5 days, 4 or 5 days, got it lanced, got it packed with gauze, got on a bunch of intravenous antibiotics that they were rotating on me. Then I got sent back home, man, after, but I'm all good now.
Man, that's wild. It sounds pretty
It
scary.
sucked.
Was there ever like a point during the whole thing where you're laid up in the hospital bed questioning if you'd ever fight again?
Nah, I never got that serious. I just hope that like it didn't get into my blood or into my bone. That's what the doctors were kind of really monitoring closely, is because it was deep inside my foot. It wasn't like on the surface. It was deep, like in my foot, and it was right above the bone. And if it could have gotten to the bone, I could have had to get a piece of my foot amputated or something like that. Good thing that never happened. But yes, I mean, any athletes out there, not just fighters, if you think you're having a skin infection or something, get it checked out immediately. Staph can be very, very dangerous, man.
Do you know how you got it at all? I mean, do you know like the specific place? Like you let your teammates know,
Nah,
like,
I mean, like I said, over the years, I've had it a couple times, and I don't know any time where it came from. I'm training with different bodies. I'm kicking bags. I'm wrestling on different mats. It's hard to say exactly where it came from.
I mean, it's pretty scary and it sounds wild. Would you say you're 100% recovered from that now?
I have like so all the packing is out of my foot. Stitches are out. I don't have any wound like scabbing or anything. I'm all healed from the cut and the infection, but I still feel like some pain in my bone, in my foot when I run or when I kick or pivot on it. I kind of still feel a little soreness. I don't know what that is, but I went to the doctor before I came out here to South Florida to train for a week, and everything was good. Everything was on track. The infection was out, so I think it's just gonna take some time for the pain to go away. But I'm back, man. I'm pretty much 100%.
Well, you're known for your toughness. I mean, anyone, you can ask anybody, and toughness will be one of the adjectives people will use to describe you. Um, and speaking of toughness, a little birdie told me that you have partnered up with Timex watches, and you're going to be one of their partners along with the UFC as the official timekeeper for the promotion. How in the world did this even come to be?
I'm not sure. Timex and the UFC did a deal where Timex was going to be the official timekeeper of the UFC, like you said, and they might have wanted to start picking up some talent that had some big fights coming up. So this kind of happened right before I fought my last fight in Madison Square Garden. I'm not sure all of the fighters that they kind of vetted out and chose from, but I know for sure me, Sean O'Malley. My deal is a 3-month deal I got with him, and he had a big fight coming up as well. So I don't know anything about his deal, but it was just they saw big fights coming up, and their partnership was newer, and they took advantage of it. So it was a great opportunity for everyone.
That's awesome. It's funny. I remember being a kid and having one of those little Indiglo Timex watches, and then
Yeah.
it was so tough, like it just would not die. And like, who better than the toughest person ever, Dustin Poirier, to like represent the brand? Are there going to be like different versions? Are you going to have like your own watch brand, like different Dustin Poirier style?
I'd love to do like a custom watch for myself, or that they sell or something like that. I'm totally open to that and interested in it. But their UFC line, they have a bunch of watches specifically made for the UFC, bunch of cool designs, some sleek designs, some bigger stuff, but the Indiglo is still there.
Let's go. Let's go. That brings me back, man. Um, no, it's definitely a cool thing. I mean, when you were fighting in the WEC, did you ever think in a million years you would be doing deals with companies like Timex?
Nah, dude. But before the WC, I was fighting in rodeo arenas in Louisiana. So that was the furthest. So I never would have imagined that I'd be doing deals with Timex and companies like Samsung and Celsius and all these, Robert Graham, all these partnerships I have. But I did an interview the other day, and I was saying that these partnerships, like I'm a watch guy, I own quite a few watches, and so when this deal came about, I was excited about it. Those are the kind of sponsorships that I try to align myself with, things that are organic to my everyday life. Same thing with Samsung. I've always been using Samsung. I get all my buddies are iPhone. They're like, dude, you got to get an iPhone. I'm like, nah, man, I've been Samsung since I was young, and now I have a sponsorship deal with them. I'm one of their athletes, and a lot of this stuff is all organic. I was actually using the product or a fan of it before it happened, and that was the key.
Man, that's fantastic. That's kind of how that's like a good sign that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing in life, when things just kind of align in that kind of way. It's pretty impressive.
Trying
So
my best, man.
in the movies, right? You see guys about to get in a scuffle and they're like taking their watches off or whatever, taking their jackets off, rolling their sleeves up. Would you have to take this UFC watch off to get in a scuffle, or could you leave it on? Is it tough?
Not this one. They have another one that has some metal. It's a little heavy. I might have to take that one off. This one's pretty sporty and sleek, dude. I can throw with this. I can grapple with this. I'll be all right.
Awesome. So, like you said, you fought Michael Chandler. Crazy banger. I think it won fight of the night, actually. Classic Dustin Poirier fight. I mean, must see. You got to tune in. It's if you need to expose someone to their first MMA fight, show them a Dustin Poirier fight and they'll be hooked. That fight was wild. You caught him in a rear naked choke. It was very, we'll say Chandler was maybe a little too game sometimes with some of the fouls that were going on. I didn't even know Michael Chandler had a neck, right? But somehow you managed to find it and you choked him out. First guy to ever do it to Chandler. Would you say that finishing him kind of was a little more satisfying because of all the fouls you had to endure during the match?
Just getting the win in general, but finishing him was the goal. Honestly, I didn't think I was going to submit him. I knew I had the capabilities to do it, but I thought I was going to knock him out. I really did. When I went to sleep at night, every night during training camp, I really felt like I was going to clip this guy and hurt him and get him out of there. And I did. I hurt him, but I just couldn't get him out of there. He was tougher than I thought. I've seen him hurt in past fights, and I just thought in my mind, like, if that happens, I'm gonna get him out of there. And he was a little bit more durable than I expected he was going to be.
I know afterwards he was asked about it, and he kind of sloughed it off as, the referees and blah, blah, blah. What did you think of that non-apology? Do you kind of just take it with a grain of salt, or?
About what? About?
When he was asked about the fouls, the fish hooking and all that, he kind of just pushed it off and saying, hey, the refs,
I don't want an apology. It doesn't mean anything to me. I just want you to be honest. That's all I ask, you know.
Very respectable. I get it. Now he's calling for a match with Conor McGregor, which could happen. You know, they both need wins, both coming off of losses, both exciting fighters. Who would you favor in that matchup?
I would I would favor Connor.
Yeah. You think he would get the
Yeah.
knockout?
I think Chandler's very hittable. Connor's timing, you know, we'll see with the layoff too might be a big factor for Connor. But yeah, I would pick Connor still in this one. Chandler's hittable. Connor's longer than him. Chandler slows down. You know, if he does wrestle heavy to avoid the striking with Connor, he's going to slow down a little bit, and then he'll be more in front of Connor and able to get touched. I would put money on Connor if it was going that if the fight happens.
Okay. And would you ever run?
Not that I can. I can't bet MMA. Not that I can, but
right. Correct. You gotta definitely put that caveat out there. Man, what a crazy end to 2022. I'll say that. I mean, what do you think of all that betting stuff? I mean, it kind of blew up. You know, the UFC brought these sponsors, and then.
Dude, I'm glad it happened because I usually do bet on fights. I'm glad it happened right before that O'Malley Jan fight because I would have lost a bunch of money. I would have bet Gamrot to beat Dariush. I would have bet Peter to beat O'Malley. Like, dude, I'd have lost a bunch of money. So they saved me some money. But what I think about the whole picture of it, I don't know. I don't know the details. I know they have some things that were fishy, and maybe we'll get some clarity, you know, as time goes on about everything that happened. But I have no clue exactly what's going on.
I mean, or before this, were you someone that would bet on themselves, like going in, like I believe in myself?
I have bet on myself before.
Well, obviously, it was a good good look.
Yeah, nothing crazy like to brag about, but I definitely bet, you know, 200 here, a couple hundred, you know, stuff like that.
Cool.
And I don't think that's the problem. Is the problem is if I was betting against myself, then we have a problem, you know. But still, it's insider trading. You know, if I'm training with these guys and they have an injury going into a fight or whatever, you know, I'm seeing it from a different angle than the public and the matchmakers are seeing it. So I can see it's just not a good look for the sport in general. And I have no problem with, you know, being removed from the betting side of mixed martial arts.
Yeah, I mean, they did ruin it for everybody else. they're making the spot hot, so to speak. But I guess that is what it is. So the current state of the lightweight division, you got Islam Makhachev. He defeated Charles Oliveira, caught him in an arm triangle. Pretty impressive performance. Awesome watching his trajectory. When that happened, did you feel like him winning the belt put you that much closer to another title shot?
And that's another one I would have bet on. You know, I would have lost. That was the same night. I would have lost that one too. It's new blood as a champion. It creates all new matchups for everybody who's previously fought, you know, Charles for the belt. So it does open things up for sure.
And I mean, how do you feel like you stack up against Islam? I mean, of course, you know, you should at least feel like you could beat anyone on the planet on any given night. But I mean, how would you prepare differently for him than you did for Khabib?
It would probably honestly be similar. Training camp, a lot of wrestling, a lot of jiu-jitsu. You know, it would be similar.
I asked you out in Abu Dhabi before the Khabib fight if the opportunity presented itself, would you jump a guillotine and go hard for it? And you told me you got to risk it for the biscuit. And sure enough, in the fight, you came closer than anyone has ever come to defeating Khabib. And I mean, with that guillotine, that was really tight. Would you jump the guillotine again against Islam if the same situation kind of presented itself?
Of course I would. Of course I would.
All right, I'm glad to hear that.
I definitely would.
It was pretty damn close. But before that, Islam's got to get through Alexander Volkanovski, the featherweight champion. That's going down in Perth. Kind of a crazy, no one left field kind of move, didn't see it coming. But here we are, UFC 284. Who do you have in that one? Is Islam leaving as the champion?
I think Islam is going to win. but I don't know. I think Islam's going to be a lot bigger than Volkanovski, more rangier. Since Volkanovski's closer to the ground, shorter and has a lower base, it might be tough for Islam to get in deep on normal shots, but maybe he can trip him up or put him up against the fence. I know Volkanovski used to get heavy, years ago. He used to walk around heavier, but fighting at 45 for as long as he has, and then coming up and fighting a guy like Islam, who's not a small guy, at 155 pounds, there's going to be a little bit difference for sure. And it'll come down to the striking, I think, because I don't think these guys are going to spend a whole lot of time on the mat unless Islam can get him down and stay on top of him. And I think that's going to be tough for him to do against Volk.
Yeah, I mean, Volkanovski showed off plenty of stellar anti-wrestling, stellar submission defense. That guillotine he got out of with Brian Ortega was miraculous. So it's definitely an interesting matchup. And I mean, I think they're saying this is like the pound for pound versus pound for pound, or number one, number two, whatever the case may be. Is a fight with Alexander Volkanovski something that ever tickled your fancy? Is that something you ever entertained or thought about?
I've never really thought about it, Yeah, I never sat back and thought about it. And before this fight was even announced, it never really was a possibility.
Okay, I understand that, with him being at 145 and all.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been there, you've done that, you paid your dues, you fought everybody. I mean, your resume is one of the most impressive you'll ever find. At this stage in your career, I mean, who are some of the big names that you would consider facing or would make for fun fights?
Man, I really wanted to fight Nate before he left the company. We tried to make it happen a few times. It just never came together. Something always happened, but I'm not sure, man. The guys who are under the roster right now, like names, I was just talking about this with someone at the gym. Names aren't really jumping out to me, but me thinking about it and the UFC calling me and say, hey, this guy, this date, that makes me feel different when it's real. So sitting back, I don't know. I don't know who to fight, what's going to happen. We'll just have to see when they call me, how I feel. I just want to be excited. I want to be scared. I want to be nervous, and I want to be motivated.
I love that. And you told Chandler that after y'all's fight. You told him you were scared to fight him, and in a respectful kind of way. I thought that was pretty cool. And you don't really see guys admitting that openly.
I wear it on my sleeve, man. I'm not trying to, I fought 30 times in Zuffa. People know I'm tough, and I get down, and I love to fight. But to say I'm not nervous, or you see the word scared, you have to be careful using, but it's the unknown. No matter how prepared I am when I go in there, anything could happen. That's what scares me, especially against guys who are that explosive and that powerful. Anything could happen in there. And the unknown scares me, and especially against guys like I just said. So yeah, I'm not ashamed to admit it. That's what motivates me. That's what gets me going. That's what makes me bust my ass and be my best.
Yeah, I think that sentiment is shared by most people. Most fighters have that fear. I mean, it's kind of unavoidable. I mean, it's a fight. Like,
right. I mean, the world is watching. My livelihood is on the line. My family.
Especially at the level you do it at. Like, that's the pinnacle. Yeah. There's nothing bigger.
And with that particular fight, I was coming off of a loss. I've never lost 2 in a row. That pressure is on me too. A lot of things go on.
I mean, you have the mental toughness. Nobody can deny that. And I want to ask you about mental health a little bit. I mean, you're someone who you don't break in fights, and we see time and time again when guys have a pressure applied to them, they wilt or they get the fight taken out of them. And I don't think I've ever seen that in your situation. I got to speak with you out in Abu Dhabi, and you told me about your you call it your circle of control, where you put everything you can control inside the circle and things you can't outside of the circle, and you only focus on the inside. And a couple months after that, I went and took a pro MMA fight, and I implemented that same logic, and I did a little video series for it. And I said, hey, you got this circle of control. What's inside, pay attention to it. What's outside, don't. And I have to thank you for that, because it really helped me out. And I just want to say thank you, because it really it kept my mentality where it needed to be and kept me from getting distracted from the plethora of distractions out there. Um,
Right. That's awesome to hear, man.
so outside of training though, I mean, what are some of the other techniques you use to keep your mental health as strong as possible? Because the fight life is not easy. You got to isolate yourself and you have to sacrifice so much. So how do you stay positive up here and keep this sharp?
I practice gratitude. I write down things that I'm thankful for every day. And I have so much to list. I've come a long way in my life. I've taken some people, my family with me, some people with me, and I just have a lot. I'm giving back to the community where I'm from, and in a good position to be able to do all these things. And I just, my family's healthy. My little girl is blossoming, and in first grade and reading. I'm just thankful and grateful for everything that I've done, everything that I've worked for, just everything. And I think that's a powerful thing to live your life in that way. And sometimes I get away from it, sometimes I get away from it, but I feel like I need to get back to it. When I feel a certain way, I need to go back to writing down gratitude in the morning, taking some time out, and just like it's like checking yourself, because it's easy to fall, especially with all the social media stuff and all the negativity that's floating around everywhere. It's so easy to fall into that mind's trap. Just trying to stay around positive people. That's my New Year's resolution. And I never do New Year's resolutions. I'm not really that type of guy, but to protect my energy more this year, not let people drain me of things that I have no control over, not overextend myself, focus more on me and my family. That's what I want to do this year.
That's awesome. The attitude of gratitude, I'm big on that as well. I try to start every day with that from that position. And the days I don't are often I'm more chaotic those days. I'm less centered, I'll say.
Yeah.
Who would you
Right.
say?
I like writing stuff down. I feel like there's power in that too. Like if I just wake up and think about things I'm grateful for, that's great. That's awesome. But when I wake up, have a cup of coffee, and I write a couple of things down, I just feel like there's some kind of power in that feels good.
No, that's awesome. And I mean, that's probably why you have so much clout with MMA fans and with the fighters alike. And you've done a really great job of building a brand for yourself and capitalizing on that brand. Um, that's why I
And
think
I've done nothing but be myself, dude.
that's the key. I mean, being genuine. But it's you're kind of like the poster boy of how to do it. You pay your dues, you build your platform, and you capitalize on it and grow it. And it's your livelihood there. But I have to ask you about this because you have such important status in the MMA world, and I hate to even talk about it, but Dana White, obviously, with the whole him and his wife got caught being physical with one another. Not a good look for the UFC. He's got the UFC slap coming out. In your opinion, as someone who knows what it takes to build a brand and keep it moving in the forward direction, how does the UFC and Dana White bounce back from this situation?
Dude, I'm not sure. I have no clue. I you should never put your hands on a woman. I don't know. I don't know the repercussion that comes along with somebody at his stature running these businesses and doing something like that. I have no clue. It's not a good look for sure.
Do you think the UFC should sanction him in any way, or maybe suspend him like they would do a fighter, or stay out of it? Or
I'm staying out of it because I'd be talking on my ass. I don't know what should happen. You know, I don't know what should happen.
yeah, I mean it's definitely a wild situation, and the irony of it all with the whole power slap thing coming out. Have you seen the power slap deal?
Yeah.
Would you consider that a sport?
No.
I don't think it is.
No.
I think it's a little silly.
It's more of a tough man competition type thing.
Yeah, but work.
And and I'm just not educated on the techniques of slapping, of slapping somebody.
Well,
So
perhaps you could cross train with Nate Diaz at some point and get your slap skills up. Probably not. Well, on a lighter side, tell me about Poirier's Louisiana hot sauce, how that's coming along, and where's the best place I can score some?
my man, It's great. I got almost an empty bottle right here of my new stuff. I'm running low.
Okay. Been down in it.
Everything's going great. You know, it's the official hot sauce of the UFC. Next was the last 2 months of last year and then all of 23. So we're in a good position, growing the brand, putting out good product. Everything's going great, man. I'm thankful that I took this venture. You know, I love cooking and I love food. And when the pandemic happened and I was stuck in my home, that's when I started reaching out to different companies. Me and my marketing company worked together and found the best group of guys and put together a team that I'm very thankful for, man. And we have a really good team on the hot sauce and everything's going great. And you can get it at heatness.com. Heatness.com. Just search Poirier, it'll bring you up. You can buy singles, 3-packs, whatever. But if you're international, go to heartbeathotsauce.com and they'll ship internationally. We also have merch over there and hats like this, shirts, jackets, all kind of cool stuff, man.
All the drip. I love it.
The drip, the hot sauce drip.
Inside and outside of the cage, what are your 3 biggest goals for 2023? Win inside and out. Win. I dig it. Well, how can people follow you on your journey? What are your Instagram handles, your Twitter, Facebook, whatever?
Everything, all my social media is under my name, Dustin Poirier. At Dustin Poirier, Instagram, Twitter, I believe Facebook as well. I'm not on TikTok or any other thing. I'm Instagram and Twitter is enough to keep up with. Oh, I understand. I definitely understand. Well, Dustin, thank you so much for joining me. And thank you for really dedicating your life to your art and putting on so many entertaining performances. You truly are a role model, and I wish you nothing but continued success and prosperity. Thank you. Thank you, brother. I wish you the same, man.